What's good? You're looking very nice today, and I hope you're doing well. Today we have another 80s banger. Some straight fire. If you ever wanted a movie where you got a ragtag village people-esque group of homicidal monsters that live under the Golden Gate Bridge and come out at night to kill San Franciscans, all tied together with a very chill score, then this is the film for you. It truly does deliver if that's what you want, which I doubt you did, or anyone did for that matter, aside from the dude that wrote this. But aside from the amazing summary I just gave you, I think we're gonna dive right in. So the movie starts off with this.
When the world is ruled by violence and the soul of mankind fades, the children's path shall be darkened by the shadows of the Neon Maniacs.
Just so you know, we never find out what that means. You'll never figure out what this means, and I'm sure till this day, the screenwriter doesn't even know what that means. Alright, so the first scene is of some dude fishing under the Golden Gate Bridge, and he like stumbles upon some cow skull helmets, and when he kind of like flips it over, he finds these what I can only describe as headshots. When I researched the movie, it claimed that they were tarot cards, but they don't have like any writing on them. But to me, they kind of just look like headshots. So, did they commission these, or is one of the maniacs just like a really talented artist? But yeah, dude obviously gets murdered, and it's a shame because like he gets his blood all over these amazing shots of the maniacs. Anyway, then we get to the opening credits, and after that really gnarly kill scene, I was expecting some cool synthy new wave 80s music, but I was extremely disappointed by the music they actually play. It's like chill, jazzy elevator music. It doesn't go with the murder. So that's definitely not the music I'd want to go with my gruesome murder. Finally, we are introduced to our main character, Natalie, and it's her birthday, and her friends are cruising San Fran, and they're like, yo, we want to get lit, so they stop for some booze. And while this is happening, we meet our first supporting character, Steven, who's out on a jog with his little doggy, who happens to like run off for some reason, and it's like to just lick Natalie. But they use this as an excuse to have Steven and Natalie in the same scene and establish this obvious attraction between the two. So you know for sure they're gonna get together later. Also, I hate this guy's face. It's very punchable. He's not important to the movie. I just wanted to point out he has a very, very stupid face. It might rival the face of the dude from Don't Panic. I don't know. I think that his face is more stupid. Then we meet our second and final supporting character, Paula, in a scene where she's in her bedroom, and we find out that she's like some horror movie buff, and she makes these like home movies, and she's a complete weirdo.
No, give me back my hand! Bad doggy.
So back to the 40-year-old teenagers who are tossing the old pigskin the room style, having sex of course, and to really, really drive in the fact that Natalie is our main character and she will not die, they give us this bit of dialogue.
Okay, but I bet you're the last virgin in San Fran.
Beyond the fact that that's like a stupid line and joke, because obviously there are children who live in San Francisco. Now we know that Natalie is a big old dumb virgin and she's too pure to get killed. And as this conversation is happening, the Neon Maniacs are descending onto this awful birthday party. I guess to crash it, to liven it up a bit, kill some non-virgins. I mean, granted, they want to kill everyone. They just so happen to not kill the only virgin of the bunch. Also, it's great how this dude totally ran headfirst into this noose. This dog is like real upset right now. I don't know what's going on. Every day, all day. Well, Natalie is saved by the cops. And after going to the precinct and recounting everything that she witnessed, the cops essentially think she's just batshit crazy and send her home. She gets picked up by one of her friends. You do wonder how and why this large group of cops were there, because who did call the cops then? Did they just happen to all come to this location? What made them open this van if they didn't see any maniacs? I mean, this is just the beginning of the long list of questions you have while watching this piece of art. So Natalie goes back to her crib and you figure out that her mom is away and she's in Europe for like a few weeks, so she's completely alone. We never get to meet her mom. And after a very stressful night of witnessing all her friends get completely annihilated at her really terrible birthday party, Natalie wants to cool off and relax and take a swim in her pool. And looky here, one of the Neon Maniacs followed her home. The one that looks like the Geico caveman and like caked in cocaine. He either followed her to the precinct, waited for her to get out, then followed her home, or is really good at guessing where people live. Either way, he traveled the streets of San Francisco undetected. She doesn't notice him in the entire scene, and as she's going to dive into the pool, he attempts to attack her, but doesn't get to on time when she hits the water. So just so you know, that's a clue. So remember that for later. So the next morning, the Popo are at the crime scene, or lack of a crime scene, because there are no bodies there, just this puddle of lime green neon goop. Like it looks like Nickelodeon slime. Then we get a scene of Paula and she's eating her breakfast. She's having a bowl of C-3POs.
A crunchy new force at breakfast. May the force be with you.
When her friend Gary calls and gives this very fierce delivery of some juicy hot gas.
You won't believe it, but get this. Last night, my dad is working the graveyard shift at the precinct. They bring in this girl, all hysterical like. She says her and her friends were attacked by monsters in Tracy Park.
Monsters? What kind of monsters?
I don't know. The ugly killing types. Anyway.
So now we're at school and Steven's hanging up some posters for a costume party / battle of the bands. Of course it's a costume party, so make of that what you will based off of what we know about the villains. And just a side note, why is he hanging up the flyer like this? He has more than enough space to not be an asshole and cover up this other flyer. And we're just gonna ignore the sweater that looks like it was feasted on by moths. So Natalie at this moment gets out of class and she's talking to like her only surviving friend, the one that picked her up at the precinct, just a couple inches away from Steven, when Paula approaches and tries to get deets on the monster, but she gets shut down.
Why don't you go back to Sesame Street?
Now, they really do try to make her seem young throughout the movie, but she's very clearly a fully grown woman, just like a petite fully grown woman, wearing a sideways baseball cap. So you're not convincing me. Then during lunch, Natalie gets assaulted by the sister of one of her missing friends, and this results in her getting suspended and told to pretty much stay away from school until the whole missing kids thing gets cleared up. Then we get this real pointless scene of Paula and Gary filming a scene for their movie. If this is not just to fill time, this is to really show us why Paula is interested in these real life monsters that Natalie allegedly ran into. But if she were such a horror movie buff, why is she filming this scene with a vampire in broad daylight? Make it make sense. So while Natalie's at home, she's getting harassed via phone by Paula and the parents of her missing friends. And during all this, Steven, who's giving off real Ben Affleck and Geely vibes here, is making some deliveries for his father's business. And just so happens to have to make a delivery to Natalie on this day. So she thanks him and offers him a beer, which is odd because he's driving and underage. And then when she tries to tip him, he's like, nah, shorty, never mind that. How about you tip me by going to the movies with me later tonight? And she's like, word, as long as it's not a horror movie. Now Paula's lurking under the bridge, looking for some maniacs. I mean, she'll probably find some maniacs, just like not any neon ones. But she does stumble upon like a bunch of dead birds, like an alarming amount of dead birds, like the amount of dead birds that you'd find in a serial killer's backyard. And her plans of canvassing this public space are foiled when a cop catches her and tells her to scram.
Slow down, kid. What are you doing down here anyway? Nice little girl like you.
Again, really trying to sell her as some youngin', but every time I look at her, I can't help but think of this.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
So later that night, Paula returns with her camera to try to really get footage of the maniacs, and when she finally catches them, she discovers their weakness. One of the maniacs just clumsily, like a complete idiot, falls into a puddle and evaporates. That's right, a bunch of freaky monsters that live under the bridge, which is surrounded by water, cannot touch water. You'd think they would relocate to a much drier destination like the desert, but no. So it's beginning to rain and the maniacs run back to their little monster pad, and Paula runs home and pops in the tape, and inexplicably nothing was captured on the tape. Also, they show her making this list, and why? Why is this being written down? And didn't she really just discover their weakness before? Like, did she really forget? If she was a horror movie buff, this should be just in her head immediately. So you're ruining her credibility and underestimating your audience with this. So Steven and Natalie are heading home after the little date, and they have to take the train because Steven's bum-ass van broke down. And the Neon Maniacs are following them, and they evade the fare like a bunch of no-good vagrants. I love how the train employee dude guy that collects the money, I guess, is looking like nothing out of the ordinary is happening in this scene. So he managed to be the worst actor in this whole movie with no lines and little to no screen time, which is quite a feat. So the maniacs get on the train with Steven and Natalie, and the train is completely empty, like a train would normally be in San Francisco. And unbeknownst to them, one of the maniacs kills the conductor, the one that looks like he's in Slipknot. But they manage to escape at the next stop and catch an equally empty bus. So as they're sitting on the bus, somehow one of the maniacs is able to temporarily choke Steven out because he's riding on the side of the bus, and the bus driver does not seem to notice despite the commotion happening. He doesn't manage to just look up in the mirror and see what's going on. It's almost as if these maniacs have a hold on San Francisco like a Pennywise would have over Derry, Maine. One of the maniacs decides to pay a visit to Paula And she's in bed with some garlic and a crucifix. And again, why? She saw what the weakness was, but she figures it out quickly anyway and totally just kills him with a bucket of water and a little bath in her tub. Despite the complete racket that this is causing, her parents are just sound asleep. So the next morning we see that Steven stood over Natalie's crib, and no, they didn't bone, because if that happened, Natalie would have to die. And Paula comes over, and her relentless stalking has finally paid off because she gets to talk to Natalie about the monsters. And she's like, yo, I seen them too. Guess what? I straight killed one with some water. Bucket of agua to the face. And since the costume party is later that night, the three hatch a plan to equip all the teenagers with some water guns. And no, I'm not talking about those badass super soakers.
Super Soaker.
No, those cheap, like, flimsy water guns you find at the 99-cent store. Now, how did they get hundreds of shitty water guns on short notice? Who knows? In all honesty, though, it's a bad idea for a couple reasons. Because one, there's gonna be tons of wires there, amps, electronic equipment. And two, I just cannot picture a large group of dumb teenagers taking the time to refill their tiny water guns every time it runs out of water, because like I said, they're dumb teenagers and they just want to have fun with their friends. So yeah. Also, it's the battle of the bands, and Steven's band, the Outlaw Boys, are playing, and oh boy is it bad. If baby lied to me, she must have lied to you. But thankfully the Neon Maniacs are on their way, and lucky for them, they didn't have to change their outfits because they look perfect for the event. And Jaded, the other band, begins performing, and if you thought the Outlaw Boys were bad, get a load of these guys. We've had enough of the kids who act so tough, making as if their hearts are made of stone. So at this point, I couldn't wait for the Neon Maniacs to arrive and just kill the music, kill the vibe, kill the people, because anyone making this music deserves to die. I was really fighting the urge to root for the Neon Maniacs at this point. It was very hard, but I was able to control it. And just when you thought you had enough, the Outlaw Boys perform another song. You've chosen me, though I don't know why. And these maniacs are just taking way too long to come fuck shit up. One is like doing open heart surgery. Also, they got some drunk chick here, and I guess there are no chaperones, and that's just odd considering the large amount of teenagers who have just disappeared off the face of the earth. You'd think there would be adults there to at least see what's going on. But finally the maniacs arrive and no one seems to notice. And you might be thinking, oh, it's a costume party, right? However, these are a group of monsters that live under a bridge and cannot touch water. So there's no way they're not smelling up the joint. So as the drunk chick is attempting to grind on one of the maniacs, Paula takes notice and very, very loudly alerts Natalie about it. Behind you! And then Natalie alerts Steven, who attempts to warn the crowd, but as he's attempting to do so, one of the maniacs just bursts in and starts blasting away and seemingly misses like every shot in this very crowded room. They really have given up on being stealthy, I gotta say. So a riot erupts and Steven's all like, yo, everyone, chill the fuck out. Just use your water guns. It's not a joke. And it's already too late, because who's gonna be like, oh, let me use this shitty water gun when like their friends are getting shot at and people are getting arrows through the fucking face? Like, no one's listening. So Paula comes through thinking much smarter than Steven, and she starts fucking shit up with the hose. Then Steven and Natalie go and they hide out in the chemistry lab, and I guess it's a good time to start making out according to them. and possibly sexing it up. So the next scene, parents are swarming the precinct and Paula, Steven, and Natalie are in the interrogation room and just getting completely ridiculed by like the asshole lieutenant. And I didn't mention this before, but throughout the movie they have like short scenes of the lieutenant and the police attempting to like solve this crime, and these scenes are honestly insignificant. They shouldn't even have been like included. For instance, this scene.
But I want a tail on this Lawrence girl. You got the job.
Did forensics come up with anything in that slime we found?
They're baffled. Completely baffled. They've never seen anything like it before.
Devin?
What?
You think she's the link, don't you?
Go back to sleep, kid.
So you start to think, hey, they're onto something and they're figuring out this weird shit is going on. So they're gonna start to believe Natalie's story. But no, because we get this scene that shits all over that.
If you kids are giving me a snow job, all three of you are done. Do you understand that?
And what happened to the other witnesses? Because there definitely were other witnesses. You're telling me the Maniacs were also able to hide all of the people they actually did manage to kill? Oh my god. So the lieutenant calls the mayor and they gather like backup and firemen, and they all go to that storage space that the Neon Maniacs reside in under the bridge, and they don't find anything. They're like, these kids are so freaking stupid, they're a bunch of big dumb lying babies. And then they leave. Like, everyone leaves except for the asshole lieutenant, who decides he wants to check out the place some more. So he sees some movement behind a vehicle and he decides to open it and gets hooked in by the really scaly weird maniac, and I guess pulled into this bright light that we're, I guess, to assume is a portal. They don't make it clear in the movie. The final scene is of our three heroes. I use that word very loosely because they honestly don't accomplish anything in this movie. They don't convince anyone of anything. They don't save anyone. Their plan actually backfires. Nothing is resolved. And the movie just ends with this ridiculous line from Steven.
Kid, you stop your squirt gun?
Yeah, I think so.
Keep it. This rain won't last forever.
That was very open-ended. There was no sequel, thankfully. Even if it would have answered all the questions, I don't think that could be saved, to be honest. So before I get into my thoughts though, and boy do I have them, I'd like to take a look at the cover art. Now, I found multiple different covers. So I'm not sure which is the OG one. I have an idea of which one it is, but I'm not entirely sure. But if I had to guess, this was the original one that was used to promote this monstrosity of a movie. And this poster is very vague. This kind of looks like something you'd grab at a video store back in the 80s or 90s, out of curiosity, expecting to experience something much different than you actually do. It just is an image of a bunch of random monsters. And yes, this movie is composed of a bunch of random monsters in which you don't understand their connection or their origin or their aversion to H2O. I think it was very difficult for them to think of an image that would really show what the movie was about. So they were just like, let's show off the monsters because they have really cool special effects makeup. And yeah, that was a strong suit of the movie, but this image doesn't really say much. But I'll quickly discuss this second art. I think it's a little stronger because you do get some visual clues that tell you more about what the movie is about, which is something you definitely want from a successful movie poster, right? There's the Golden Gate Bridge. You got Steven and Natalie in the front. At least it looks like Steven. It doesn't really look much like Natalie. There's no Paula. That's an issue. But they gave them real guns, and that's a lie. That's a whole ass lie. That is very misleading. There weren't any real guns used. It was all water guns. Yeah, I mean, there was potential here, but I, on the other hand, wanted to put our three main characters in the center because they really are the central characters, even if they're not like relatable or likable that much. I also have them equipped with the correct, proper weaponry, some water guns. And just like the two other posters, I use neon font, which only makes sense. With the Neon Maniacs, I hope I got all of them right. There were so many, so I kept getting confused. I had to look at pictures, but I think I figured it out. I think that's all of them. Now, do I like this movie? Yes and no. It is entertaining. It's so bad, it's good, but it's very messy, you know? And what I was able to find out was that the movie was plagued with tons of production issues, which is why there are so many holes. There's no real ending. You're left with a lot of questions, and they even recasted some of the Maniacs because there was just like a stall during the filming. So there was like a portion of time when they weren't filming. They had to like recast them. So this movie is kind of a mess. Now, if you do go into this with no questions, no expectations, you will enjoy this. It's very enjoyable, especially if you love 80s schlock. I like the aesthetic. I do love the 80s-ness of it. The monsters do look pretty good considering everything that was going wrong with this movie. Allegedly, there were supposed to be 27 of them. Thankfully, they cut them down to 12 because I could barely keep up with 12 as it was, especially when you don't understand anything about them. Some of them seem to be like robotic and others seem to be seeping and secreting this green gooey stuff. The monsters lost any amount of scariness they could have had when you find out that their weakness is water. And they say water, but I have reason to believe it's all liquids, as displayed in the scene with the drunk chick when this maniac is frightened by her almost getting her spiked punch on him. So essentially you could like piss out of complete fear when one of these maniacs attempts to kill you and just kill them without even trying. So if you're gonna be scared of any maniac, I suggest being scared of this one.
Like,
Now, even though I'm on the fence, I think it's valuable to look at the opinions of those who know where they stand when it comes to this movie. Maybe it'll help me figure out where I stand. I'm gonna start with a few reviews. A couple of the first ones are bad ones because, interestingly enough, there are far more positive ones than negative ones. So here's Cross Country Man with his 1-star review. Horrible skank movie without any plot, rhyme, or reason. I'm gonna stop. Horrible. Not sure if he spelled it incorrectly because he's bad at spelling or if he did some clever thing there. I'm inclined to believe the former. Also skank. I'm pretty sure he didn't use that word correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. I'll continue. Horrible skank movie without any plot, rhyme, or reason other than some cranked out movie mogul's drugged vision of life derived from hopped up psychedelic dreams of grandiosity in a theme park of horror. Gag me with a hypo of Thorazine to sit through it. Oh boy. Does he want to be gagged with a hypodermic needle? I'm starting to believe that Cross Country Man here is on drugs. Was already on some drugs before watching this movie. So if anyone here knows Cross Country Man, please make sure he's doing okay. Just see if he's doing well. Anyway, next review. This is a 2-star review from Michael Cooper. Sad crap. Terrible, in a word, but they won't let you get away with a word. I feel like this movie legit caused people's brains to melt. Like, anyway, just take your TV and throw it out the window before you turn this movie on. That is like straight awful advice, by the way. Usually they tell you this after because they're like, oh no, it's so bad, your TV's tainted now. This guy's like, no, don't even, like, before you even consider watching the movie, just toss your TV out. I mean, I saw the movie, so does that mean I get to technically keep my television? So I mean, I think if you haven't seen Neon Maniacs, just go chuck your TV out the window. Don't even check if there's anyone standing or passing by. Just as soon as possible, get rid of that TV. Okay, here is a positive review. It's a 5-star review, A Marvelous Failure by RL. The 80s, as they were still trying to figure out the formula for how horror was changing. From the cheesy soft jazz soundtrack to the lack of coherent explanation for anything around the monsters to scenes where the movie is visibly padding runtime with the goofiest of overacting. This movie is a delight for the fan of schlock. I know this isn't a funny review, but it's definitely one that I can wrap my head around because it definitely shares the same sentiments that I have. It even shares the same sentiments that many of the negative reviews share. So I guess it really depends on how you appreciate it or what you expect out of the movie before watching it. In fact, here are a handful of just the titles of positive reviews just to show you what I mean. Here's a 5-star review. Horrible. I loved it. 5-star. Stupid and brainless, but I still find it fun to watch. 4-star. A good movie if you enjoy bad ones. 5 stars. Schlock so thick you could cut it with a knife, but use a spoon. You'll need to scoop your brain back into your skull. 8 out of 10 stars. Classic pile of filth. So what I can deduce from this is that I actually do like the movie. I wasn't sure at first, but I do, I guess. I like the movie, so it's another recommendation from me. A non-qualified B-movie and exploitation hobbyist. So give this a like for the murder of the stupid face guy. Subscribe and comment, and go watch Neon Maniacs because otherwise you'll have to chuck your TV out the window. So I suggest you get on that now. And